Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second course of the Apex Academy. This course promises to blow your mind. Apex Academy number 1 was an excellent introduction to the Apex programming language, but in this course, you're going to understand true power in Salesforce. Power you've never experienced before, and power you can only get through code. I hope you've brought your seatbelts. It's time to go to hyperspace and start Apex Academy 2, Fundamental Coding Techniques. You're going to master the core tools of Apex, tools that you'll be using literally every time you code. My name is David Liu, and I'll be your mentor throughout this course. Let's get started. Here's an overview of what we'll be covering in this module. First, I'll talk about my second favorite topic, myself. Then, I'll give you a preview of what we'll be learning throughout this course. I want to paint that picture in your head of where your coding skills will be after this course. We'll talk prerequisites too, where you should be in your coding journey right now to fully take advantage of this course, and how to quickly catch up if you're not up to speed yet. Finally, we'll begin learning about the 6 fundamental Apex skills you must know to call yourself a developer. This is me. My name is David Liu, and I work at Google as a Salesforce technical architect. This basically means I'm the guy in charge of every technical decision in our Salesforce org, especially if it's code related. And I'm going to tell you a big secret right now. Anyone can learn what I've learned. It doesn't take a genius, but it does take hard work and someone to mentor you and guide you in the right direction. That's the whole point of the Apex Academy. I'll teach you to be a Salesforce developer or a technical architect too. But I digress. Moving on. Salesforce has awarded me their highest honor, the Salesforce Most Valuable Person Award, 3 times. I have every Salesforce certification except one, and I do have the Platform Builder 2, aka Advanced Developer certification. In my free time, I write for sfdc99.com, a site that teaches people Apex. Check out the success story section if you want a good read, or just check out my site for the free t-shirts. I've consulted tons of Salesforce orgs across the spectrum, small, large, standard, customized. I've seen a ton, but I'm always amazed at the ingenuity of this industry. Finally, I've also been fortunate enough to give many Salesforce presentations around the world. I don't work for Salesforce, but I work closely with their team to make training content, for example, Trailhead, which I highly recommend. Add me on Twitter or LinkedIn. It would be a pleasure to connect with you. Let's talk about the overall goal of this course. This is what you're going to be able to write by the end of this course. Yes, all by yourself. You're going to be creating variables, using collections, starting loops, making if statements, doing DML, and my favorite, dot notation. Didn't catch all that? Don't worry, we have the entire course to get you up to speed. And don't forget the very best part. You're going to write test classes for this. Now, don't be fooled into thinking that just because the word test is in the word test classes, that you can't have fun while writing one. Test classes are the best part of coding, and we're going to build good habits early by making sure you fully understand how test classes work. So what do you need to know before starting this course? Well, you need to know the basics. What is an Apex trigger? When do you write one? How do you write one? And ideally, you'd have written a few triggers yourself, no matter how small or simple. This is a fundamentals course, so I'm not expecting you to be a full-fledged developer yet, of course. Don't forget the test classes too. It's so easy to try to sweep poor test classes under the rug, not knowing that test classes are just as important as the triggers themselves, and a test class may save your life one day. Maybe not your life, but certainly your job. You should know why we write test classes, how Salesforce calculates code coverage to allow deployment, and ideally, you've also written a few test classes for your triggers as well. Again, this is a fundamentals course. You don't have to be an expert. Now, if you're not sure if you meet the bar for this course, the solution is simple. Watch Apex Academy #1. Maybe it's been a while and you just need a refresher. And if you've coded in another language before, I recommend starting in Apex Academy #1 still, because there are Apex quirks that you need to be aware of. If you're able to complete the homework for Apex Academy #1, currently shown here on the screen, you're ready to rock and roll. And don't you dare forget the test class too. Let's jump in and get started with learning the core Apex development tools that you'll be using literally every time you write code. If you were learning English, these tools would be your ABCs. In a nutshell, there are 6 development tools that make up core Apex. We'll be covering each of these tools in depth in a moment. For now, let me give you a high-level introduction of what they are. The first core development tool is the variable. You've used these by now and most likely already have an intuitive idea of what they are. Now you're going to get formally trained on them. Next, we have collections. Collections basically let you store many things in one place. For example, a collection might be a list of 20 accounts belonging to you. Both variables and collections make up the absolute core functionality of Apex. Next, we have loops. Since every trigger already loops through trigger.new, you already have experience repeating code using loops. I'll introduce you to 2 types of loops and their main use cases. If statements. If this, do that. A coworker once joked with me that as long as you knew if statements, you knew how to code. If statements are just like their point-and-click formula field counterpart, but in code, they're even more powerful. Next is data manipulation language, better known as DML. DML saves what you've done in your code into your Salesforce database. You've already used DML by now when you inserted or updated records in your triggers. But I'm going to teach you specifically when to use DML and when not to use DML. Finally, we have dot notation. Oh boy, dot notation. My personal favorite tool, because I still remember the exact moment I fell in love with coding. It was when I learned about dot notation and saw just how powerful a simple period could be in code. I hope you have a similar experience when I teach you dot notation. Master these 6 tools and you can write pretty much anything. All right. This wraps up our introductory module. We talked about 3 main things in this introduction. First, I gave you a glimpse of what we'll be learning throughout this course and showed you a sample of code that you'll be able to write all on your own. Then, we talked about course prerequisites. Make sure you've written at least 1 Apex trigger and test class before beginning this course. I don't want you to fall behind. Finally, we began learning about the 6 core Apex tools, which include variables, collections, and my favorite, dot notation. I hope you're excited as I am to jump back in and continue on your coding journey.